Heads up, hobby maniacs. I'm MBG Rob Bear, and today I'm going to show you how to magnetize your Stormraven from that crazy looking turret to the Stormbolter sponsons as well on the left and right side. So first off, you just got to grab your Stormbolter sponsons there and just a random piece of sprue. It can be anything from any part of the sprue as long as it's flat. If it's got little nubbies there, make sure you trim them all off, and you just put a piece of regular super glue down just to get it set, and then I used a little bit of plastic glue to set it to actually the plastic itself. Then I used a little accelerator just to get in there and kind of lock it in as the rest of the glue and the plastic glue dried around it. So I did that for both of them, and then after that was dried, I just grabbed a normal handy dandy magnet. I think that's a, what is it, like a 1/8 inch, I want to say, and then just basically locked it into some zip kicker, which is the accelerant, and just kind of a separate, empty base. After I let it soak for a second there, you saw I grabbed it with the metallic clippers just so I had something to kind of, work the actual magnet itself, put some super glue down, and then locked it into place. Now, you're going to want to let that sit and dry for a while because you don't want it to pop off when you lock it in on the Stormraven itself. So once that's done, put it aside, let it dry. Now, here's the trick. We're going to use some tin to lock the magnets to each other. So instead of doing magnets and drilling all these holes and, doing all these different things here and there, where you might reverse the polarity, we're just going to use some tin. So all you have to do is just go to your local Home Depot or whatever, grab some of those paint trays, and you saw there I used some tin snips, which are pretty heavy duty, but they get the job done. Just cut down those latex paint roller trays, and then just cut out the flat parts for the actual tin parts you need. And then you just kind of insert it right up inside the Stormraven itself. And as you can see there, we just kind of lock it into place with some glue, hit it with some kicker, and let it set. Now you want to be careful that you don't get that glue into around the actual I guess the recesses where the door might go, because if you do, what you're going to see here in a second, where I kind of overshoot and I get it into the recesses, I have to scrape it out for a hot minute. And accidents happen. I was going a little fast. This was my first tutorial video, so but that aside, stuff like this, it's just going to happen. No hobby project is perfect, and that's why you always have to have the tools on hand to just kind of go in and straighten it up. Here I'm kind of scraping a little bit of the glue on the right hatch, and you can kind of see that I'm just making sure it's all sealed in there. There was a little bit of a gap. Again, it's not a perfect science, but it is something that you can always go back and fix if you happen to mess it up. So that side being right, I just kind of wanted to make sure that the door fit in there perfect. Lock that in, and then you just do the left side. Again, repeated the same process, just took a piece of that tin from the latex roller paint trays that you can get at Home Depot or anything like that. Then just put a piece of kicker, a little drop of kicker in each corner, and then just kind of locked it into place. Now immediately you can see there in the bottom that got some in the corner, and it's gonna take some scraping out. Like I said, that sort of thing happens with these sort of projects. It's no big deal. Just used an X-Acto blade and some of the GW seam scrapers to go in there and kind of fix it. Now, a little note of caution when you're using a zip kicker. What I like to do is I don't like to spray it with the spray pump, because what that does is it creates this like splatter effect. Even if you're not using the aerosol, even if you're just using the pump action, it just kind of gets everywhere, and it's super annoying. So what I like to do is, and you probably saw it here just a second ago where I put the actual kicker in the corners, is I'll just basically unscrew the top, pull it out, and use the little dropper where it basically the feed tube, and I'll just kind of like depress down very gently on the top button, and what it'll do is it'll drop a little bit of kicker out the bottom, like kind of a reverse pressure thing. And what that does is it just puts the drop right where you want it. It's almost like you get a free applicator inside the bottle, right? So that's pretty nice. Now back to the video here, you can kind of see where I'm just push fitting the actual door just to make sure it gets in, it's getting in there, and there's proper clearance and things like that, because you don't want the doors to miss. You know, you don't want them to kind of be like jumbly and things like that. You want to make sure your magnets fit. To magnetize the doors themselves is very simple. All I did was take the same size magnet, a drop of glue, boom, just straight up in the center of the door, because what's going to happen is the clearance between the magnets and the door is enough that it's going to still have that attraction, and it's still going to attract, and you're still going to have that, you know, basically the magnetic force keeping the doors on. For the top weapon assemblies, the armored plates, you get one set of armored plates and unfortunately you get a whole bunch of set of weapons. So I'm going to show you kind of how to do a quick magnetization on that one as well. Basically, to start off, I decided that you needed to drill out each of the actual weapons themselves and drop a magnet in there. And then when I was kind of probing them with the smaller drill bit, I realized that I could just drill all the way through and just slot a whole bunch of magnets in there and just be good to go and not have to worry about depth. So what I did was I just basically used the existing hole, grabbed the drill bit that was the diameter of the magnets, which you saw there at the beginning where I was kind of sizing it up, and then just kind of drilled it all out, pushed it all the way through, you know, just made sure there was good clearance. You know, you want to drill, push through, drill back, because the little pieces and things that you're drilling out is going to get stuck in there, and you want to make sure you get a nice clearance for the magnets and the actual drill bit itself. Remember, the drill bit, you want to clear it, you want to clear the hole and everything, and make sure that you're going to have that width for those magnets, so you can dry fit them and make sure everything works and engage your depth correctly. You might have figured out what we're going to do with this. So we're going to put the magnets into actual weapons, and then we're going to cut out more little tin pieces, and we're going to glue the tin pieces onto the armor plate, because the armor plate has to be able to switch out between each of the weapons to lock in on top of. So you're going to have the turret, and then you're going to have the weapon magnetized to the turret, and then you're going to have the armor plate that goes on the outside of the weapon. So you're kind of making this little like assembly. So magnets in the middle on each side sticking out of the weapon, and then you're going to have a tin plate on the turret and a tin plate on the armor cowl, or the armor plate on the outside. So it seems a little weird at first. You're making a magnet tin sandwich, but it definitely beats drilling out and magnetizing 3 different parts instead of just you're drilling out and gluing down one set of magnets and 2 pieces of tin, so you don't have to match up any polarizations or anything like that. So very little room for error, which is super nice, and you can kind of knock it out really quick. So here's the dry fit of the magnets. Now, like what I was talking about with the kicker, basically use that free applicator to let the magnets soak in kicker. Now they're going to be pushing inside of the actual, like a really deep hole. So even if the actual kicker weakens the bond with the magnets, you're not going to have to really worry about it, because they're going to be inside that hole. So I just applied a little bit of glue to the armor plating and glued that tin in there, cut a nice little piece to fit. I have some smaller shears, not necessarily those huge tin snips that you saw earlier, so those are a lot easier to lock in. That piece is super easy. You don't have to worry about which magnet side goes up, which one goes here, and are they gonna repel each other? You know, is that armor plate gonna fly off because I misaligned it? And that's always super annoying. You're gonna see in a lot of these videos that I use the clippers kind of as like an extra set of hands. Just instead of getting my fingers in there, I just kind of use the actual blades. And then a lot of times at the end of the project, I'll just go back and clean the blades off with an X-Acto. Okay, so here is the turret itself. And like I said, just using a little piece of tin, just kind of locked it in there and made it nice and flush. Kind of figured out the correct diameter and dimensions to lock that piece of tin in. Just put a little piece of glue down. And I like to use the Instacure when working with metals or like resins, stuff like that. I think it works really well. So I lock that right in, let those dry. It's very important that you give your magnetized pieces and assemblies time to dry, because you don't want to glue the stuff down, and then you go to see if it fits together, and then of course you pull it apart and your magnets are sticking to your tin. So you want to make sure you give everything enough time to dry, far enough away from each other on the actual your working surface, so they don't do this big barrel of monkeys super combiner across the table. That's happened to me before. So next up, just basically putting the magnets into the actual holes. You can kind of see I basically figured out that about 2 or 3 magnets would fit in the hole, and I wouldn't have to worry about any depth or anything. So I just kind of let the magnets soak, put a little glue in the hole, did a little dry fit, made sure it went in, made sure just to set it flush on each side, and then just let them dry for a second, and then boom, they're super flush, ready to go, ready to butt up against the turret and the actual armor cowl assembly itself. For the Stormraven, I elected to make the assault cannon and the last cannon, and then I was like, well, what the heck, there's only one more set, and that was a plasma cannon. I don't even know if I actually included that with the project, but I figured what the heck, it's always good to have weapon options. So here's the big test, the big dry fit, and it looks like the armor plates stick on there just fine, and it looks like the weapons stick to the turret just fine. On both sides, you can flip them, and then there's the armor plate goes right onto there as well, so that that definitely bodes well for that and lines up pretty good. You got some independent fire motions and range of fire there. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention too, because we were going kind of quick, is make sure on the inside of that metal plate you glue a piece of sprue. Now you probably saw it in the video while I was talking, but it's very important that you cut a piece of sprue that's long enough to go in and set all the way across the door. So that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching my very first official hobby tutorial article. I hope you like what you saw. Make sure you hit me up in the comments with any questions, concerns, room for improvement. I know the video might have been a little blurry. I apologize for that. I'm still learning my technologies. I definitely promise to get my technologies better here in the future. So like I said, that's it for this one, guys. Make sure you stay in the trenches, subscribe to this YouTube channel, check out the blog, spikybitsblog.com, and listen to our podcast, forgenarrative.com. Spiky Bits.